logistical, technical details. I think we've got it. So since we've got all our board members here, we'll go ahead and get started. Call to order this special board meeting of Newberg School District 29J. So I think tonight we've got obviously a pretty simple, straightforward agenda. I'd like to open with just a brief time for board comments if any board members feel called to speak, and then we'll go into public comments. Would any board members like to speak?
Randy, I can do my statement now, if you know, but it's long. So if somebody else wants to go, they can.
Go ahead.
Okay. With recent events unfolding, I have been hearing from you, my constituents and fellow Newberg Dundee people, that you would like a broader explanation of my no vote on the Newberg School Board's 2020-04 anti-racism resolution. As many of you may know, due to technical issues during the vote, I was unable to comment on my decision during the July 23rd board meeting. Today, I would like to just explain the decision I made as a public servant. I have committed the majority of my life to working with and supporting youth and our community as a coach, mentor, Newberg School District employee, volunteer, and now as part of the Newberg School Board. In my 20 years of public service in the Newberg School District and more than 30 years of direct interaction with thousands of youth in the Newberg community, I have prided myself on ensuring the importance, safety, and development of all individuals, regardless of race, gender, age, or background. I have always lived my life this way, will continue to do so as long as I live, and expect the same from my community. My voting against this resolution has been perceived by many as a denial of racism's existence or an outright condoning of racism. We are all too quick to draw that conclusion. A vote against this anti-racism resolution means you must be racist or condone racism. I consider this reflexive reaction one of the main issues we face today in our country. The breakdown of our ability to have objective, nuanced, and open-minded discussions about critical and highly complex issues is a major downfall of our current society, and in my opinion, the primary reason for the polarization of our country at this time. Stating a non-popular, dissenting, or divergent opinion in our society today is no small matter. It will likely result in hate-filled responses, character attacks, censorship, or even violence. This is a sad reality, and it's happened. We have the freedom to speech by inalienable right. We are failing to remember that the right comes with the responsibility to listen and to try to understand. If all we do is preach and speak at each other, and no one is on the other side to listen or try to understand, then what is the point? We have to consciously and proactively want to and encourage rational discussion between opposing viewpoints, as well as honest self-reflection and the challenge of our own viewpoints and biases, myself included, most especially when considering such high gravity issues as that of racism. If we don't, if we cancel, if we blindly renounce, if we attack character and not content, then our world will nosedive into extremes and polarization. By voting against this resolution, I am in no way condoning racism or diminishing its impact on certain communities, but rather my disagreement with the approach, methods, and message this resolution sends to our community. I also disagree with the viability of the resolution to affect meaningful change in our community and the assumption of the resolution that we are not already committed to these goals in our community. This seems to be a gesture without any verifiable action plan or solutions. While our country, like every other country, has a checkered past, we have made some incredible and unprecedented strides towards combating many issues of oppression and inequality. But I also believe that we have plenty more work to do, and likely we always will. However, I believe that much of the currently promoted ideology around racism and race relations is rooted in a very narrow and unnuanced understanding of what is obviously a very complex and emotionally loaded topic. The current public debate around race relations is not one that I think is being had in a constructive way. There are a bevy of nuanced thoughts that are not being heard and in general detract from some of the very difficult conversations that we must have. With this in mind, I am continuing to listen and to learn from other perspectives. I fully believe in the intent of this resolution was coming from a good place and with a benevolent intent. The intent to put a stop to the wrongs and ills that racism and bigotry have caused and are still causing in our country. but I believe the approach and rationale is misguided. Where I differ in my views are, first, I believe the anti-racism movement reduces all issues to race and will lead to polarization, not progress. Two, how do we go about addressing and combating the issue of racism, especially as they apply to political policy? And three, the pervasiveness of systemic nature of racism in our society and the Newberg community today. Newberg School District already has 5 policies: JB, JBB-AC, JFCF-AR, GBA that deal directly with students, staff, and parents. These policies have been reviewed within the past year, and in them there is coverage for any wrongdoing in our Newberg school community. Non-discrimination, racism, bias, hate speech, and the mistreatment is explicitly addressed in our policies. This leads me to believe that this latest resolution is less about combating racism and more about adopting and being influenced by current cultural anti-racism ideologies rather than addressing the specific issues and possible solutions as they pertain to our community, Newberg, Dundee. If not, then why is it necessary to create an additional resolution on top of the existing policies that clearly state the same clauses and condemnations of discrimination based on race? As a coach, volunteer, and school staff member, hate speech, discrimination, and racism have always been antithetical to my worldview and everyday interactions with youth and individuals in our community, as I believe they have also been for our school district and education system at large. If these policies have already been in place in our school district, then why are we now just attempting to tackle these issues stated in this resolution? Where were we all at on May 24th? At what time or in what specific instances has our school district employees or students not stood up and punished, overlooked, or excused grievous instances of racism? Whatever racially motivated issues in our community have happened in the past or even recently may not be as brightly illuminated as they are today due to the national attention on the issue. But I cannot believe there was no fight or justice for these issues in the past. I believe it is because our community, employees, and our students are already on board with this. They have been for a long time. Racism is wrong, but this is not about non-discrimination anymore. This is about our society and our policymakers being influenced by the national organizations like Black Lives Matter movement and their push to not only be against racism, but to be anti-racist. These ideologies claim that America and its citizens are inherently racist, perspectives that claim if we are not actively anti-racist, then we are by default racist. I refuse this mindset. The anti-racism movement is reducing all human relations to a rudimentary correlation of skin color and equality. The inequality in outcome, therefore, must be solely attributed to race. In this view, racism can no longer just be understood as the belief that someone is inferior based on race. Rather, racism must be defined as the belief that any differences in outcome must be assigned directly to racism. Thus, any system that ends with different outcomes must be racist. This is dangerous, misguided precedent that I will not stand for. I stand for and believe in equality and opportunity, but equality of outcome is not possible to guarantee, and seeking it only results in a reduction of groups to individual characteristics and factors and not paying attention to the holistic nature of our society. The multitude of factors at play in any individual's lives and human nature, absolutist thinking of this kind can only lead us to extremes and further oppressing, not suppressing it. The OSBA Caucus of Color also made a resolution along with the OSBA, stated in their resolution statements that they were in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter organization. Our board followed the OSBA as we nearly always do on educational matters. While the intent is noble, we must ask if doing the popular thing is in our long-term best interest. Some of the wording and much of the theme that Newberg School District used to frame its own resolution was from these resolutions. To be clear, this resolution has direct ties and influence from the Black Lives Matter organization. To me, all Black Lives Matter. They always have. But these 3 simple lowercase words have been co-opted by the organization. I think it's critical this distinction is made. The Black Lives Matter organization stands for much more than simple slogan they have titled themselves after, and is not the same as just believing Black Lives Matter. The popular viewpoint in our society has become that if you don't side with, believe in, or support the Black Lives Matter organization, then you don't believe that Black Lives Matter, and by proxy are racist or condone racism. So by default, we have to also accept the additional ideology baggage of Black Lives Matter organization. This is false reasoning. I also vehemently disagree with much of what the Black Lives Matter organization stands for and is promoting in our community. This does not make me oblivious to the multitude of issues faced by minority communities in this country. I personally am very concerned about racial inequality, but I care about finding actual solutions to specific and clearly defined issues in our community and our country as a whole. I believe the Black Lives Matter organization and similar like-influenced ideologies are either willfully trying to undermine finding solutions to racism in our country or ignorant to the fact that their methods are actually damaging. In my first action at the Newberg School Board, my first thing I did was take the oath of office, as did my fellow board members. In this oath, I solemnly swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and all its laws. I solemnly swore to uphold the Constitution of the State of Oregon and all its laws. I solemnly swore to uphold the policies and rules of the Newberg School District. I take these vows very seriously and will honor them to protect every person, no matter what. But the Black Lives Matter organization, amongst other ideology movements, has led to charge into our society that flies in the face of our Constitution and the values that this country was founded on, the values that are the only thing standing between systems of oppression and freedom and equality for all our people and our society. But these values, our Constitution, is being renounced, not only by the Black Lives Matter organization, but the strong undercurrents at the root of the organization. Their belief: tear down the system. Tear down our country. It's a beacon of hope. The Black Lives Matter organization states in their own words and their handbook, this is what they promote: believe in a Marxist socialistic form of government. We actually do have ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular, we're trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. This is from Patrice Cullors, co-founder of the Black Lives Matter organization. If you read my statement in full, you'll have video sources to all these things. I'm not making this up. This is what's on their handbook, on their video sources. When their leaders say burn it down, they mean taking down our democracy, our Constitution, and our current form of government. And they will not stop until they get what they want. This is their agenda and their goal, and they are succeeding today in many places, especially in the minds and hearts of people who think this is about George Floyd and justice for people of color. Make it clear, what happened to George Floyd was wrong, and justice needs to happen peacefully. This movement is taking advantage of Mr. Floyd's tragic death to advance their agenda. Black lives do matter, absolutely, but we must distinguish between the true statement and the organization that uses this statement as a title to mask their true nefarious intent. The Black Lives Matter organization believes that in their own words that they want to disrupt Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement in the United States of America. Why? Because the strength of the individual in a solid nuclear family unit undermines Marxist socialistic movements, because these ideologies rely on all citizens to be reliant on the government, not themselves. Strong individuals and families are antithetical to socialism because Marxist socialist government's success depends on central control of indoctrination and morality, which is not possible with the nuclear family intact. Further, time and again, the primary factor that leads to poverty, higher crime rates, and poor quality of life are fatherless and broken homes. If the goal is to lift minorities out of systems of oppression, then why is the primary driving force behind race relations in our society today, the Black Lives Matter organization, promoting disruption of such a fundamental value? The Black Lives Matter organization believes and they want to dismantle and defund the police of the United States of America. Our police are not perfect and never have been. Reforms are needed and we have to do better. But our laws and the 800,000 police officers that serve our country and protect us like no other country in the world are and should be respected. I support police reform that is done wisely, peacefully, and respectfully. And I believe the majority of police officers who do this amazing and demanding job would agree. For the police officers murdered during these so-called peaceful protests, to the over 700 who have been hospitalized with serious injuries, all the way to concussions and counting, who have been injured, and to the rest who are waiting for our country to stop this incredible disrespect they are being shown. I say thank you for protecting our country, our communities, and my family every day, to all the police everywhere. The Black Lives Matter organization wants to seek a Marxist socialistic form of government. We need to wake up and see what's really there. But just as disconcerting is the fact that they are actively trying to undermine our current values and actively working towards policies that will actually harm, not help minorities. Whether this is intentional or not, we can talk another day. Unfortunately, there are many in our society today who do not see this as a bad thing and in fact encourage it. And while Black Lives Matter may not speak to everyone in broader movement, I cannot in good faith stand behind a movement whose leaders espouse such radical positions and the reordering of American society. Many in our society today also believe the values of this great country we live in are founded on lies, racism, and oppression. They fail to understand the Constitution and the founding documents were not declarations of successes or claims of a job well done, but rather ideas that we have, still are, and should always continue to strive towards. They were declarations of what this country can be, not what it is. They are ideals that we will never live up to, but should never stop trying. I cannot sit back idly while our youths are indoctrinated with ideas that our country is inherently evil. I cannot sit back and accept that racism is part of our DNA that has been widely claimed recently. The idea that racism is fundamental to our people in either our DNA or as a virus is one of the most damaging ideas I can think of and will and has certainly set back our race relations. The only natural conclusion to such statements is that the vast majority of people in our country are inherently racist and without cure. How does that solve anything? How can anyone look at the progress of this country and believe such things? Again, we are not perfect and we have a long ways to go. The answer is there a solution here or just further division? The resolution also outwardly assumes a systematic racism in the Newberg community. We as Americans who love this country need to stand up and say no more, not just for the sake of our country, but for the sake of actually finding real solutions to the problems of racism and discrimination in our country. If we want to solve a problem, then we first must accurately and specifically understand the truth and nature of the problem. By reducing the worldview and values in our country to being fundamentally racist, we are setting the stage for the destruction of a nation that was and is a pioneering force in human rights and justice. The only natural drawn out conclusion to such extremes, to raise not only the structure, but the foundation itself. To think about this happening should scare us all to the core. Are we genuinely deciding to slide into a belief that there's nothing good or nothing just about this country, that we have to tear the system down? That is why I voted no on this Newberg School District resolution to further this movement by using anti-racism as their voice. Racism is real and needs to be tackled. I took the oath of office that gave me no choice to follow this movement. I will never apologize for defending the United States of America and the Constitution of our nation. If I see or hear racism, I will stand with you and fight it every time, but I will not allow myself, my friends, my family, and community to be deemed racist by default, and you should not either. If you truly care that for others, no matter who they are, you will treat others well every time. You will stop hating those who disagree with you. You will engage in healthy discussions and dialogue that seek positive change and aim to help all people, no matter their race, their gender, or their age. You should love this United States of America and all the wonderful freedoms we enjoy. You should respect Americans who came before us and fought to make this country great. They had flaws and they didn't always do what we think is right. They may have been completely wrong at times. However, they had lived in a different time and place. Things were vastly different than today. Instead of damning their missteps, how about we also celebrate their foresight and progress? We have a 2020 lens to hindsight that they did not have. Let's learn from them, good and bad, not to repeat their mistakes and build upon the good. I'll close with this. John F. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country?" The time is now to take that to heart. The United States needs you and I to step up with honor and civility and bring this country together, not tear it apart. We must heal one person at a time and quickly. We must stop the violence and the hate. We must stop seeing each other through lenses of color and race and seek the heart of the person. This will not be easy. There have been many wrongs. We again have to be better than those wrongs and today move forward. We move forward with every single encounter, with every single person we meet. We must work hard to take care of our United States of America because this country has given us so much and can give us so much more. We must remember to not forget all the blessings we have. To those of you who have spoken harsh words directed at me, let's move past words of hate and move towards words of healing and seeking to serve others and not ourselves. God bless the United States of America and all the people in it. Sincerely, Dave Brown.
All right, thank you, Dave. Are there any other board members who would like to make comments at this time? Yes, go ahead.
Speak, Brandy. I just want to thank all the attendees that we have today on this call. I know that Zoom isn't the most fun way of attending, so I appreciate everybody that's here to speak on this matter.
Yep. Anyone else?
I'll go. Dave, I thought that was amazing. I agree with 90% of what you said. You know, I backed this resolution, but I recognize that there are genuine problems in not the movement per se, but certainly the Black Lives Matter organization. You know, I wasn't BSing the other night when I said I wanted to listen to a lot of voices, and I have been listening to a lot of voices. And some of what I have been hearing comports very well with what you said, and it is disturbing. And I don't think that the United States is an evil country. Do we have problems? Do we have problems around race? Absolutely. And we need to work to fix those problems, but we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a lot of great about this country and our community. And I want to apologize to you. If I had known you had the reservations about the resolution, I would have never moved it to a vote without trying to get them addressed. And I'm really sorry for what I perceive to be an online mob that has rushed to hang a Klan robe on you when you are absolutely undeserving of it. And I want to apologize for that. And that is what I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just wanted to share, you know, I didn't actually at the vote share why I voted for it. So I wanted to take this opportunity to share with folks, you know, why I did vote for it. Excuse me. You know, in the early 90s, I heard an interview with Chuck D where he said that turning on a light switch can be a racist act. And at the time, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it to the point where it made me angry. And it took me a long time to really understand what he was saying, that the intent of the action really isn't the crucial element in a lot of times. You know, sure, there's the overt things that, yeah, that intent is clear. It's the effect, and the effect of participating in that system without challenging it took me a long time to understand. And I voted for this because I believe it's important to challenge systems that support inequality and racism. And I stand by my vote to pledge myself and try and guide the district towards working towards resolving those inequalities.
Rebecca or Ron, do you have anything to say or anything to add?
Yes, I voted for the resolution because I felt that we needed to speak to the times. The nation had just gone through this tragic situation with George Floyd, and our people, our constituents were asking for something. And yes, we have the policies, but a resolution is a reaffirming what we want to fight for. And I didn't see anything about Black Lives Matter in the document. And I'm sorry that I appreciate Dave's comments now. I wish he had been open with the board before the meeting on the 23rd, so we could have worked through these issues, because we have to be open to one another on these issues so that we represent the entire city, our constituents. And I appreciate all the people who shared their personal stories and their input. I just ask that they stay involved with us, because we're doing it on behalf of the constituents. We aren't above the constituents. We were voted in, and we are here to serve the students and the families of Dundee and Newberg. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Ron, would you like any time, or are you okay right now? Okay. We still can't hear you.
Can you hear me if I do this?
Yes.
Okay. I do want to say a couple things. First of all, I want to explain why I wasn't at the meeting last time, because I just learned that day that I'd lost my job at George Fox, and I hadn't been able to reach my adult children during the day, so I needed to be at home so they could hear from me rather than send through the grapevine what had happened. I did send to the meeting a statement of my support for the resolution. I wished we could have amended it to take out the first paragraph, which I thought made the resolution sound like an immediate response to current news when what we need to work on is a long-term situation. And I also thought the first paragraph was poorly written. But I said I would support it, even if there was no amendment, and I do. I still do. I really appreciate Dave Brown's statement. I don't think it was a good idea not to get this out as soon as possible, because I think it would have helped a lot for people to at least understand where he's coming from. And I agree with most of what he said. I certainly agree with most of what he said about how to take our American heritage with its mixture of promise and failure, to try to emphasize both the promise and emphasize all the good things that are in that heritage. In particular, in my view, the American experiment has always been sort of defined around the promise, based in the notion of the Declaration of Independence that all of us are created equal and all have equal and inalienable rights to the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which to me defines what America has promised to be about and has consistently failed to me. I also understand Dave and I had ongoing conversations in board meetings about this. It's all on record someplace. The idea that we can't guarantee a quality of outcome. I understand that is fundamental, because we all have different strengths and weaknesses, and we're all distributed along a bell curve in any of those areas. And so the people that are really good at things will always be better at them than the people who aren't. The fundamental problem, Dave, and I don't see how you've addressed it in your comments, is that those bell curves are not the same. A white person's bell curve in terms of school performance is consistently better on average of the white population than it is of our minority populations. And it's not because minority people work less hard or less capable. It's because our system has systematically kept them from having an equal place on the starting line. That starting line actually starts a little before school starts, but school is our main public entity, our main institution in our society that could have an effect on bringing those bell curves of achievement into alignment. And until that happens, then we will not be able to treat all students equally and still treat them justly. So that is why I would support the wording of the amendment. I'm not a giant fan of Black Lives Matter, and I know there's lots of stuff in their agenda that I would not support. But at this point, that's a quibble I don't think I have the luxury of basing my decisions on. The wording in the resolution, especially after the first paragraph, I can back wholeheartedly, and I think we need to do it. I agree that we already have many provisions in our policies that are intended to address some of these issues, but so far they have been persistent. We have made essentially no lasting progress in dealing with the gaps in achievement in my 8 years on the board. And so another attempt to upgrade our efforts on this is essential, and I think this resolution provides us a framework to do that. That's why I supported it. Thank you. Oh, one more thing, Brandy. I need to move from being in my car because I arrived home during Dave's statement. and I'd like to move to a place where I can actually not do this.
Okay,
It'll take me a couple minutes.
sure.
So I don't know what to do about that.
Bob's taken over the signage duty, so don't worry
Oh,
about
that helps. That helps. Okay.
Yeah.
So I may be able to transition without any break, but if I disappear for a second, I'll be back. Okay.
Okay. Thanks for letting us know. Okay. Could you mute yourself? Maybe we can mute him.
Oh, you need to beat myself. Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maybe. I'll try. Maybe. Greg, can you mute me?
Luke's our guru tonight. Gotcha. Okay, good. Thank you, Luke. Or Ron, whoever did that. I just have a really quick statement. It's really clear that we're in a time of great anxiety and sadness and grief. And tonight, there are people in our community that we know are grieving. And I encourage us all to hold our neighbors and our friends and our families in our hearts during this time of upheaval and change. And please offer grace and be kind to yourself and to others. Okay, with that, we'll move into our public comment time of the meeting. I'm going to just read kind of a brief statement for all of our participants, just so they kind of know the guidelines for their comments. The Newberg School Board invites and encourages citizens' attendance and involvement in our board meetings. And the board encourages citizens to share ideas, opinions, raise questions and concerns, or offer compliments. Thank you to everyone who has submitted a request to speak tonight and to those who sent in comments prior to this meeting. In order to conduct a timely meeting, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and requests to speak during the meeting are not accepted at this time. When I call you, please state your name, your relationship to the district, place of residence, and the subject that you will address. The board may choose not to address your request if the topic is outside of the scope of board governance. And we ask that you remember that Oregon law prohibits us from discussing specific employees or their job performance. And I also ask that your comments focus on board actions and refrain from personal attacks on board members. Thank you for taking this time to be here with us tonight. As a board, the comments we hear help guide us in our decisions and help educate us as leaders in the community. So thank you, and let's get started. Okay, let's open. We've got actually, we might have more than one student in attendance. I'm not sure, but I know that this is a student. Janae, are you ready? And Luke, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. And I think what will happen for those is they'll be temporarily disconnected and then reconnected as a panelist where they can talk. So we'll try that for the first one here.
Okay. Great. Janae, I see you. I don't know if you can control your mute and video or if that's Luke's area.
Okay, I got it.
There you are. Hello, welcome. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. I'm a 6th grade student at CV Middle School, and I'm kind of confused still why Director Dave Brown didn't vote yes on the anti-racism resolution. I feel like that is kind of wrong. I feel like all people are equal and deserve to be treated as such. I have an older brother and sister-in-law who are Black. After George Floyd's death, they went to 1 or 2 of the rallies, and they were peacefully standing in the crowd of protesters, and they were tear gassed and shot at. At one point, my sister had someone who stood in front of her to save her from being hurt. And if that kind of racial actions and feelings are out here in our communities, we all have to help the people who are being hurt. You can't just say, I'm neutral, because that is siding with the enemy or the people of race and white supremacy. All of us deserve a just, safe, and loving education. And if Mr. Brown is going to continue to vote no on the anti-racism resolution, I don't feel like he should be on the board. I don't want someone who doesn't stand up for all students controlling my education and my peers' education. What he is doing is wrong, and I feel like he should be removed from the board for that. it is not a right to be on the board. It is a privilege and responsibility. If he is not going to use that responsibility or privilege for the good of all the students, then I don't feel like he should have it at all. As they say in the musical Hamilton, history has its eyes on you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Janae. I hope you can stay with us for our meeting, but if not, I'm glad you were able to come. Okay, David, are you ready?
I am. Thank you so much. So my name is David Jaimes, and I am the assistant principal at Edwards Elementary. And let's see here. I have a prepared statement here. Dear members of the Newberg School District Board, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you today. It is with mixed emotions that I am here today. I have felt the range of emotions prior to today. I have been angry, I have been sad, I have been confused, but through it all, I have been hurting for our marginalized community. When one of our board members voted no on an anti-racist resolution that was passed at our last board meeting, it felt like a slap in the face to all marginalized communities. Unfortunately, I could see that member was having some technical difficulties, and he was not able to know, and we were not able to know why he voted no. That technical difficulty aggravated the situation. However, I'm not sure what could be said that would justify a no vote on that resolution. Our job as educators is to educate every student. If we do not listen to our students, how can we be doing our job correctly? Ibram Kendi states that a definition of someone who is anti-racist is one who supports an anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. He also states that someone who is racist supports racist policies through their actions or inactions or expressing a racist idea. Now, I do not want you to misconstrue the point that I am trying to make. I am not calling anyone a racist. What I would like for everyone to understand is that through a no vote, that member was accepting of the systemic racist practices that are embedded in our educational system, whether that was his intention or not. I have gone back and forth on what I would like to see the outcome be from this. At points during my anger, I felt like this member stepping down was the only option. However, through lots of introspection and prayer, I have come to the conclusion that I would also fail as an educator if I did not give him a chance to educate himself on how to be anti-racist. I hope I was hired due to my reputation of always standing for equitable outcomes for our students and not for my good looks. So I would like to extend those equitable outcomes to not just students, but also to this board member. A couple of other educators and I will be reading the book, How to Be Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. Therefore, I would like to extend an invitation to the whole board to partake on this book study. I would be happy to facilitate this book study for you. We would start with the framework and lay the groundwork at we could start the framework and lay the groundwork at your board retreat if you wanted to. I could lead you through some equity protocols that will be useful to have courageous conversations with. If we do not educate ourselves, then we will always revert back to what we know. It is also very important to have a growth mindset in education. I believe that everyone should assume best intentions, and obviously, this board member would not be here if he did not care about students. So board members, what do you say? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. There's so much to say to each and every person who makes comments, but that's not the role of this. So we will be following up with each board or with each person who's making comment tonight. Okay, Judy Brown, are you ready? Yes, there she is.
Yeah, I only saw one Judy on the list, so I'm assuming that's Judy Brown.
Judy, right now you're muted and we can't see you. give her a minute here, just for the technical maneuvering required. There you are. We see you, but we don't hear you. Just working on it. Luke, do you think it would be easier to come back if people are having technical problems, or is it better from your end to let them?
Yeah, it'd be fine to come back to people if we want to. I'm wondering if it's also a good idea to let people know kind of who's on deck and who's coming down the line so they can be prepared for it.
That's a great idea. So after Judy, we have Isaac.
So yeah, I will go ahead and pull up Isaac.
Okay.
I don't believe I've seen the list, but I see a phone number that matches. So I will allow that phone number to talk, and we'll see if that works.
And Judy will come back. Isaac, are you there?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Saha. I will be speaking on behalf of my brother Isaac Saha, who wasn't able to join in today. We live at 918 South River Street. I will talk about the importance of fairness. I will be a fourth grader at Crater in a few months. I am a Mexican American boy. Thank you for supporting all students. All students need to be treated with kindness and fairness. It's not fair when students are treated differently because of their skin color, where they're from, or what they wear. All students matter. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I missed, what was your first name since you're Isaac's brother? What was your first name?
Hello?
Hello, are you there? Yeah? What was your first name?
He said Joel,
Hello.
Brandy.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. That's my mistake. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for speaking so eloquently on behalf of your brother. Well done. Okay, should we try Judy again?
Is it gonna work?
Yep, there you go.
Yay! Okay. So I go ahead and start. Okay, I'm Judy Brown. I'm an educator here in the school district. I'm a 6th grade teacher. I have lived in this community for approximately 12 and a half years. As my phone goes down, I've been given the opportunity to read a letter from a mother, and she would like me to go ahead and read this letter. So I'm going to read this letter to all of the board members. And again, thank you for your time. This is from Lisa writing. She has a student who graduated last year, attends Willamette University. While social media and certain news outlets have continually boasted the surgence of racial divides and notions of racial tensions in all communities is present, I have to ask myself many questions on how to respond as a parent and active community member. I've kept quiet too long and therefore feel a responsibility to raise my voice at the most recent resolution and board statements. Again, this is from Lisa. Question, and I believe, just to add, that all the board members have this in their inbox. Question that many parents have had that affects our community: education, what is going to be taught to our children, or what has been taught to our children. Additional questions are, why was this additional resolution even necessary? It is our understanding that the Oregon Department of Education already has multiple policies fostering equality and excellence for every learner, regardless of ethnicity, I can't even say it right, economic status, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, and etc. There are several key words in your resolution statement that as a community member and parent that I'm equally concerned with, including, quote, the district will work to be actively anti-racist and dismantle systematic racism in our schools and empower people of color by a thorough review of policies, practices, and district cultural norms. The district affirms the value and importance of culturally responsive pedagogy and instructional practices and of curriculum that represents the diversity of community and, quote, the statement that contains, quote, empower people of color, quote, as educators, is your job to educate, not promote social news trends. It is in these statements that you are creating additional confrontation. It is not a Black student, Asian student, Spanish student, white student, girl student, boy student. They are students and learners. When you stop placing a racial divide on the type of student, you will be able to start re-educating people and doing their job. There's more to this letter that she would like me to read, but it won't take way too much time. But as at the very end, there are a couple of statements that I would like to make about my son's education, oops, or lack of, as at Newberg High School. My son was a student at Newberg High School, graduating in 2019, and he is attending Willamette University. If I made the statement that my son is white, yes?
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but we're at time, so I'll just give you a little bit of time to just wrap it up.
Okay, I didn't get the notice. I
Sorry,
apologize. Yeah, so she goes on to talk about her son. And of course, the recent Facebook news about one of our board members. And so if you would take some time to read that, that would be powerful, because I think as a community member and as a parent, she shared this, and she has some really good information. And I hope all the board members, and I think the administrators would like to see it too, because maybe it would empower and move our district forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Sorry about that. I hate to have to cut people off, and it's like,
Hey, that's okay. I didn't
let's
see
get in
any
there,
of the paper, so
Yeah.
didn't show.
Yeah, thanks for coming tonight. And I also didn't give the next person the heads up. So next up is Shally, and then after Shally will be Bryce.
And I see I think a Shay on the list, who I'm assuming might be the same person, so I'll promote them.
Shay.
That's right.
Donna. Shay, sorry, there's an L on here.
Shaylee. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
My name is
Go ahead.
Shaylee Casey McDonough. Thank you. I wanted to say I grew up in this area. I honestly moved away when I was 19 to get away from the subtle but loud racial bias here. So no matter what anyone wants to say, it's very prevalent in today's society here. Which is why we teach children, especially about the oppression of a huge group of people in today's society and how that pertains to them on a day-to-day basis. Not only so that my niece and her future cousins can go to school comfortably, but so that all minorities that enter the school have an equal opportunity to succeed. I say equal because growing up in this area, going to school here is like being told your whole life you can have the piece of the pie, but never even get to sit at the table. Hope you understand, just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean it's not happening. And Dave Brown and the people who agree with him, I really want you to listen and realize that your life you've been living, you've been seeing it through white eyes. So please listen and come with empathy and understanding to POC struggle in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Shay. Well spoken. Okay, next up we have Bryce, and after Bryce will be Amy Nelson.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Bryce Cofield. I work at George Fox. I serve as the Associate Director of our Intercultural Resource Center. Yeah, it's an honor to be here with you all. I did have some thoughts coming to this earlier, and I found myself in a space to respond to what I'm hearing and, more importantly, feeling. And I do so with much trepidation. Like, if you were to see my leg, it's shaking because I know of the dominant narratives around the angry Black man. And trust, I try real hard not to be the angry Black man. And there have been multiple comments this evening that have elicited deep, not only anger, but pain and fear. And I've lived here for 3 years coming from LA. So as you might imagine, it was a little bit of a shock, but I was told there are good people here, right? You and your family will be safe here. And I want to reflect on a few things that lead me to feel not safe here, right? Brian, I don't know you, and again, and hope you feel I'm not coming for you as your person, but when you use language that elicits images, right, of the Klan and the noose, and saying that folks who are honestly trying to understand the why behind decisions that are being made, lead me to believe that you maybe don't fully understand, or maybe folks don't fully understand the Klan and white supremacy and the history of not only this state, but the nation. And as someone, again, who does this work at George Fox, leads me to believe that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. Consistently, I'm hearing folks talk about racism within a purely interpersonal context, meaning we stand against hate speech, we stand against interpersonal forms of violence, we stand against anyone who would personally discriminate, right? And as Ron had alluded to earlier, racism is more than just interpersonal, right? It exists in our systems, hence why having an initiative that would speak to dismantling, deconstructing systems that result in what we are seeing is the racial discrepancies in success outcomes for our students in our school district. That's what we're talking about, right? Folks using the N-word is deeply painful. Folks flying the Confederate flag in and around Newberg is deeply painful. But when we look at why our students of color are doing poorly in our schools, we need to ask ourselves, can this maybe be more than just an N-word or Confederate flag? What is it that's built into our policies? Sorry, 30 seconds, all right. What's built into our policies? What's built into the narratives of our minds that tell us, well, is the problem more with students and communities and culture, or is the problem with policies, right? So how can we begin to point to policies to address these racial disparities? Because that's ultimately what we need, and I think what our students are asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryce. I know it's hard and it's a weird format to get up and speak, and it's a passionate subject. So I appreciate you coming out. Thank you for your time. Okay, next up we have Amy Nelson, and after that we will have Meryl.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Amy Nelson. I live in Newberg and I'm a mother. And first off, I'd like to thank all of the members who did vote to approve the very important anti-racism statement. I'm proud to live in a school district that is committed to anti-racism and dismantling systemic racism. I'm going to be reading a statement, so I may not be looking at the camera, but I would like to share some data and some questions for the board to consider that may help to begin the long work towards creating equity within our district. I recognize that these questions will not be answered today and that systemic change will take time and collective effort. According to the Department of Education Civil Rights Report, in 2015, 20.4% of our student body in the district was classified as Hispanic, yet only 7.6% of the students enrolled in gifted and talented programs were Hispanic. I'd like us all to think about, why are Hispanic students so underrepresented in gifted and talented programs? What barriers are they facing? And what can we all do to improve these numbers? In 2015, Hispanic students made up 32.5% of in-school suspensions, 29.1% of out-of-school suspensions, 33.3% of expulsions, and 60% of referrals to law enforcement. And remember, they were only 20% of the student body population. Why are Hispanic students disproportionately suspended, expelled, and referred to law enforcement? Where can early intervention methods be applied to reduce these numbers? How can we better support our Hispanic students? In 2015, Black students made up 1.4% of the student body, but 33.3% of non-disabled students receiving out-of-school suspensions were Black females, and 20% were Black males. In the 2013-14 school year, 1.4% of the student body was Black students, yet 20% of in-school suspensions were Black students, and 5.1% of out-of-school suspensions were Black students. These numbers are highly disproportionate and show that we are failing our Black students. The 2017-2018 state report card, 20% of the student body is Hispanic, yet only 4% of teachers are Hispanic. What can we do to recruit and hire more teachers of color? Data from the National Assessment of Educational Progress shows that all students benefit by learning from teachers of color. However, the impact is especially significant for students of color who have higher test scores, are more likely to graduate high school, and more likely to succeed in college when they have had teachers of color. Those teachers serve as role models and support their attachment to school and learning. Students with racially diverse teachers also have fewer unexcused absences and are less likely to be chronically absent. So I recognize that a lot of the data that I have shared is 5 years old, and it possibly does not reflect the current situation. However, I could find, after a very thorough Google search, no data regarding academic equity and disciplinary actions. How can we hold ourselves accountable to being an anti-racist district if we do not have accurate data to reflect upon? I recognize my time is up. Thank you for your work to create a safe space for all students in our community.
Thank you, Amy. All right, next we have Meryl, and then we will have a comment from Liz after Meryl.
I did promote Meryl to panelist. There we go.
Thank you, Bob. You're doing a great job on time. Meryl, we can't, oh, yep, now we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Let's see,
Yes,
start video.
No video.
Let's see, let's try it. The video worked. Start video. Come on, you can do it. Oh, there it goes.
There we go.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm a mother with 2 young children here in Newberg. I live in 2505 Redwood Court here in Newberg. Our eldest attends Mabel Rush Elementary School, and our youngest will be starting kindergarten this year, theoretically. I believe the unrest we're seeing across the country is the result of systemic and institutional racism embedded in many of our departments and institutions, including our education system. I greatly appreciate the recent board resolution, but the repetition and cycle repeating shows that we need to make broad changes in order to address these issues. Statements are a good first step, and I applaud this, but change is necessary to prevent these atrocities from happening and to address the institutions that continue to maintain systems of racism and discrimination. I think we can all agree on the importance of schools and education, providing the basis of learning and understanding, but I think we can also agree that there's a lot of work that's needed around decolonizing our curriculum, the diversity in our staff, as well as our school policies and disciplinary actions. I would like to see the school district implement restorative justice practices in our schools, including training for staff and teachers in order to help teachers handle situations in a restorative way while also maintaining the classroom and protecting other students. We know that Newberg is predominantly white, yet students of color have higher rates of discipline. Last November, Ann Zeal, Director of Special Programs, presented to the board saying that the Newberg School District reports behavior incidents by race higher for BIPOC than for white students, especially when you consider district-wide demographics. For example, Latinx students make up 21% of the student population, but also make up 36% of the total behavior incidents. Put another way, white students make up 72% of the population, yet only make up 0.35% of the behavior incidents. This is from the 18-19 school year. To put it more bluntly, this shows discrimination and implicit bias in action and the need for change in disciplinary policies. To help address this, I'd like to see DEI training requirements for our board, staff, teachers, as well as yearly refreshers. I have a lot of other suggestions, but let's just skip ahead. I believe the board needs to use equity as a lens for every action and decision made, and that we need a system and framework that can handle the complexities of the situation while also addressing the problems embedded in our school system. I'd like to see our school curriculum decolonized. Students need to see themselves in the curriculum. White students need to see how BIPOC contributed to history. I'd like to see the district prioritize hiring a more diverse staff. Newberg teachers are 92% white, as well as hiring more support staff. We are at unprecedented and extremely challenging times during this pandemic. There is a lot of pressure on the school districts while also less resources, but I hope that we can use this time of change and unrest to reprioritize and reimagine our school districts and education to be actively anti-racist. Thank you for your time and dedication to our community, to this district, the staff, and the youth.
Thank you, Meryl. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have Liz up, and next after Liz, we have Beth.
And then after Liz and Beth, we have Lynn Holt, but I don't see Lynn Holt on the list currently. So Lynn Holt, if you are there, if you could rename yourself so we can find you, and we can get you in the queue that way.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. My name is Liz Fodge, and I'm a dual language fourth grade teacher at Edwards Elementary. And as the only bilingual school in our district, we serve a higher percentage of students of color than the other elementary schools. And you may think that with our increased diversity, that Edwards would be something of a safe haven for our marginalized students in our community. But I witness racism and microaggressions against students of color virtually every day in my building, in large part coming from well-meaning white educators like myself. And in my 3 years at Edwards, I have consistently seen the bar lowered for my Latino students. I hear others speak of them with pity instead of pride. And it has been well documented that when teachers have lower expectations for students, those students are less likely to be successful in school, less likely to finish high school, or to attend a 4-year university. We are living in a time where having good intentions as an educator simply isn't going to cut it. We owe it to our students and to ourselves to examine our own prejudices and begin the painful work of unlearning the racist lessons that we have internalized as a community and as a country. I am grateful for the board for beginning this conversation within our district, and I would like to see increased diversity within our faculty and staff, as well as professional development centered around dismantling systemic racism in every Newberg school. Our students are watching and waiting to see how we will respond. Let's not continue to fail them. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, so after Liz, we have Beth, and after Beth, hopefully Lynn, if you're out there. If not, then we have Greg after Beth.
Oh, perfect. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. I'm Beth Woolsey. I'm a Newberg Public School parent. I've had 3 kids go through schools in Newberg, and I have 2 more kids still in Newberg Public Schools. This is my statement. The first time I realized I may not have a full understanding of present-day racism, I was sitting in church in a small group on the topic. I expected it to be like every other historical lesson I'd had, that racism is bad, but it used to be worse, and that it's our ongoing duty to stand up against blatant racism when we see it. What I didn't expect was to learn about pockets. I didn't expect that the Black man next to me, who is my age with kids who are peers of mine, raising them in the same church and the same Newberg I am, was going to reveal how differently the world works for him than the way it works for me, a white woman. That night, as we sat in pews, my friend shared that when he goes to the store, the same Fred Meyer where I shop, he never puts his hands in his pockets. He conscientiously makes sure it's clear that he's not holding a weapon or stealing merchandise. And he conscientiously had to teach his son the same rule. That's literally a basic safety measure for families of color. That was in 2008. My son, adopted from Guatemala, was 9 years old then. I went home and cried because I realized for the first time I was going to have to teach him an alternative set of rules, an unjust, inequitable way of behaving to keep him safe. It broke my heart. My son moved on from elementary to middle school here in the Berg, where he was called a spick and a beaner regularly in the halls and the locker room. And then, of course, he grew large and man-shaped, and at age 17, he was described in a local Facebook group as dangerous and shifty and probably going to attack or rob a nice family going for a walk. Do you know what my son was doing when he was described that way? He was walking the dog, our golden retriever, Zoe, and he allowed the kids in the family to pet her when they asked. They approached him. Then when they walked on down the path, he walked the same direction behind them, the way he was already going. But they were positive he was following to hurt them. I had to explain to the nice families of Newberg that my son isn't a danger. It wasn't the first time he was treated as an inherent danger due to the color of his skin, and we know it won't be the last. It's a sadly normal story. Kids of color handle things like that every day. Kids of color have to follow rules about pockets. And as a mother of 2 white teenage sons as well, I can tell you my children of color are treated differently than my white boys. There's no question that racism exists in our community, and it exists even though it's so often invisible to white folks. It exists in our schools and in our embedded bias and in our curriculum, but it doesn't have to. An anti-racism resolution shouldn't be a radical idea, nor should it be controversial. I applaud the Newberg Public School Board for approving the anti-racism resolution. It's critically important to our kids and to all of us to see our leadership take a clear and firm stand against racism. Our community deserves to have our board representation unanimously united against racial bigotry and discrimination. As a member of Dave Brown's district in Newberg, I implore him to rescind his no vote, take up the proactive cause of anti-racism, and especially to listen to people of color who are telling us the opposite of what Dave's statement said, which is that this resolution, I have just like 5 words.
Okay, thank you.
Which is that this resolution statement is important.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
No worries.
Yeah. Let's see. We just got a message from Lynn. Oh, that's from you, Luke. Sorry, never mind. Okay, can we go ahead with Greg? Is he right there? Oh, different computer maybe. That's okay. After Greg, we will have Jen Graham. Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, hold on. 2 computers. It's still too much. Okay. Sorry, I'll move to another room. Greg Woolsey, Newberg parent. I'm speaking regarding Resolution 2020-04.
Go ahead and get settled.
No, the opening statement tonight has sent one Black Newberg High School graduate into a panic attack severe enough he will not be speaking in his allotted time slot. I did not realize until your recent resolution that Newberg schools did not have an explicit requirement or process for analyzing, tracking, and improving both policy and curriculum with respect to cultural and racial bias. Thank you for resolving to do so in public and in writing. As a parent of kids with a wide range of skin tones, putting some in the minority in our district and some requiring special assistance through their educational journeys, I can say from personal experience in year 14 of 19 with children in Newberg schools that I've experienced directly both the district's capacity for continuous review and improvement in some areas and complete lack of any process, policy, or standards in others. One of our kids has both Latin genetic ancestry and experiences significant intellectual disabilities that required IEP services throughout his career. There were bumps in the road, but every time we knew who to talk to, what our rights were, what the school's responsibilities were, and how to convene meetings to review and adjust plans as things evolved. That same child, as a middle schooler, was once the target of demeaning, overtly racist statements from a teacher in class in front of other students and had no support. Sure, individual staff and administrators agreed the action was completely wrong, but there was no district avenue for addressing this. There should be. IEPs are backed by detailed state and federal statutes. Addressing racism should have a similarly detailed process and should not require that level of statutory requirement to get there. With this resolution, you, the board of directors, are empowering and requiring the district to work out with enough clarity and detail ways this type of issue could be addressed in the future. Thank you. This fills a gap and meets a need. Similarly, I thank you for your commitment to thoughtful engagement of culture and history to help right the wrongs of my own education that focused so much on specifically white European ancestry that I didn't know until adulthood how much history, science, art, and culture was left out. Teaching our kids to think, to see things in context, hard questions and all, is our best shot at preparing them to engage the world after high school. Identifying the blinders that limit that preparation is a communal and ongoing task. Now about the facts stated as impetus for this resolution, the only disagreements there would be with the personal stories and verbs, as all the nouns are just names of people, events, and concepts, all concrete and well-defined. Dismissing personal accounts of racism and fear, I don't even need to editorialize about, so it won't be that. And the verbs, care and safety for our students, are also clear and unambiguous. That leaves the only objections that I can see are one, reading into it words that are not actually there, or an implicit or explicit desire to maintain the unequal, unfair, and racially biased status quo as the only reasons that I can see to oppose this resolution based on its contents. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, next up we have Jen, and after Jen will be Lori Albright. Jen, are you ready?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, all right. I'm a parent and a community member, as well as a substitute teacher in the district. And I support the Newberg School District's statement of anti-racism. It's so important that all students are equally treated with dignity and value. Those who have been marginalized need to know that we're making efforts to make these changes because they're valued members of our community. And I personally have committed to listening, learning, and making changes. Thank you. Thanks for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, next is Lori, and after Lori will be Gabe. Lori, maybe we can hear you. Oh, there you are. Great. All right, go ahead whenever you're ready.
My name is Lori Albright. I live on Chehala Mountain. I've lived in this community 46 years, and I've taught in Newberg School District over a quarter century. I have two sons who went K through 12 in Newberg School District. I have been educated in Oregon's Untold Story curriculum, which looks at historical ways that our state has racially discriminated against countless individuals. I have been on the Oregon Historical Society curriculum team for their recent exhibits. I marched from Selma to Montgomery with the National Park Service as one of 2 leaders from Oregon asked to come and walk side by side with another individual for over 50 miles, and we'd switch individuals, looking for how we are going to work personally to stop racism and injustice in our country, which regardless, Board Member Brown, of which political system you want to say, it is a systemic problem in every community in our country. And my suggestion to the board is that we need to take off our hats, our thinking caps of how we've thought already. This is the hat that I wore for that march from Selma to Montgomery in the footsteps of civil rights activists with young people and teachers and from around the country and around neighboring countries. We need to change our thinking caps because it's our responsibility as leaders in this community to do every single thing we can to help teach about microaggressions, which are not little, which change lives, with alluding to Nazis, alluding to slavery, saying phrases like a spade is a spade. These are hurtful, historically damaging parts of our curriculum that we need to change. And we need to educate our teachers, our coaches, our administrators, our aides, our bus drivers on how to be inclusive of all. If we are going to stand up and say that pledge for liberty and justice for all, then we have to mean it. And we have to be willing to say we don't know everything. That's why I took off my hat. It has to be each and every one of us. Our leader from the National Park Service told us to talk with each other as we were walking those 50 miles and say to your neighbor, what is your Selma? What is your one thing that you are going to take on personally to make this community, this world, a better place culturally by stopping racism? I have witnessed in this school district teachers mispronouncing names of students who have been in this district for 12, 13 years because they were hard to pronounce, of students of color, leaving out parts of curriculum because it was unpleasant to teach, and poo-pooing the microaggression awareness trainings available. So I would really encourage each of you to get into our school and for our district to have microaggression awareness training by Diamond Law. They're amazing. And I ask each of you, what is your Selma? What are you going to do for the people in Newberg to make our school district a safe place affirming all?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. That was your time. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Okay, next up we've got Gabe, and after Gabe we will have Rochelle.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Good evening, my name is Gabe Caruso, and I spent the entirety of my pre-college education in the Newberg School District. A few weeks ago, I sent you all an open letter to Dave Brown in which I showed extreme distaste for Dave's lone dissenting vote in the anti-racism resolution. Since the vote, scholars and parents of color in his district have had to live with the assumption that the representative is against dismantling racism. Dave chose to say that he would not speak on the matter until the next board meeting, citing that public officials do not speak on social media. This is blatantly false. The President of the United States tweets ad nauseum. Members of Congress use Facebook and Instagram on a daily basis to keep their constituents informed. To say that you aren't allowed to discuss actions online is just not true. You're an elected official and you are responsible for your actions. It's your job to communicate what is happening at board meetings with the people you represent, especially your own actions. You are a community representative. If you're truly unwilling to use a public platform to educate your constituents of what you are doing, I question your commitment to your community. Because of your silence, I've grappled with what you could have been trying to protect with your no vote. And in all of my assessments, all I can find is a logic rooted in white supremacy. Now, Brian and Dave, white supremacy doesn't always come in the form of KKK garb and symbols. This country was founded and built on white supremacy. When America was in its infancy, it manufactured wealth simply by having an unpaid labor force. White Americans were able to create generational wealth by completely dehumanizing Black humans for their entire lives. Multiple generations of Black and brown Americans lived and died without ever having a moment of true freedom. When slavery was ended, Black Americans lived under Jim Crow laws and were continually treated like second-class citizens. For centuries in this country, lynching was a spectacle, often being accompanied by carnivals and festivals. After the civil rights era, Black and brown Americans continue today to be victims of redlining, gentrification, and discriminatory hiring practices. 1 in 3 Black boys growing up today will spend time in prison. It has been said in regards to Colin Kaepernick's kneeling that racism is so American that protesting against racism is seen as protesting against America. I need you to understand that racism comes in many forms, and it is not up to people of color to take your hand and educate you on the matter. There are hundreds of books and documentaries that speak on this subject at length, but it is up to you to read and watch them. You and I have undeniable white privilege, and while you may feel that your upbringing was full of struggle and hardships, you still had white privilege. All that means is that your struggles and hardships were not because of your race. For many people in the Newberg community, their hardships are directly tied to their race. If you are looking for local proof, I invite you to look up the article printed in the Newberg Graphic on June 29th titled, "Newberg Man Shares Experiences with Racism Discrimination." I don't know how many riots and protests will need to take place in the world for you to understand that people of color are literally dying because of these systems of oppression. It is no longer enough to be not racist. You must be actively anti-racist. We live in a racist society born of a racist beginning. We live with racist laws, racist senators, and have a racist president. There are relics of racism in every aspect of American culture. There's something called the paradox of tolerance, which asserts the following. For a society to be tolerant of all peoples, races, creeds, genders, and orientations, they must be intolerant towards one thing, intolerance. If they are tolerant of intolerance, the intolerance will grow stronger. For example, in 2017, Donald Trump spoke of neo-Nazis and the protesters saying, "There are very fine people on both sides." Just 3 years later, last Sunday, Donald Trump tweeted out a video of one of his supporters chanting white power. This is why anti-racist policies and actions are necessary. White silence is compliance. White silence is violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. Okay, next up is Rochelle, and after Rochelle, we'll have Kaylin. Kylan. Hi, Rochelle, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Rochelle Staley, and I am a current youth pastor and adoption social worker in the city of Newberg. Now that the Newberg School Board has passed an anti-racism policy, I'm requesting an action step by school officials. I'm asking that the Confederate flag and other symbols of hate, like Nazi swastikas, not be allowed on school property. This year at Newberg schools, both parents and students have displayed large Confederate flags flying from vehicles on school grounds during school pickups and drop-offs. This does not communicate that our schools are a safe place for students of color. When students do not feel safe, their ability to learn is greatly hindered. Would the board please unanimously agree these symbols of racism are inappropriate on Newberg school properties and will be addressed by school officials? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've got Kylan, and then we will have Kareem after that.
Unmute, start video.
Yep, I can.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great. My name is Kaylin Kent. I live at 1419 Creekside Court here in Newberg, and I'm a substitute teacher in the district. And I was going to comment tonight just simply saying that I support the resolution. I was really heartened to see it. But I guess sitting here tonight, I had an additional small comment I want to make, which is just on that word anti-racist or anti-racism. And I really think that this word is probably a growing edge in our community. I didn't start off with the political orientation that I'd probably that I have. I started off with very different beliefs about race and about privilege when I first became, politically thoughtful. And I think, terms like anti-racism, when some people encounter them, there's still a lot of question about what that means, and if it's going across a boundary, and it probably is. But it's a boundary that, for me in my life has been better living in an anti-racist way, and it's not something that I have done from even my early student days. Some of it came from learning from history. A lot of it came from friends of color. But, a ton of it just came from moving to more diverse neighborhoods. But really, each time I grew a little bit, I would pat myself on the back for being like, more thoughtful, more worldly, more aware. But it was becoming a teacher at Waldo Middle School in Salem, where I taught for 2 years, where it really did actually start to mean something. And I learned it was anti-racism is it's a process of lifelong learning. And so for anyone who's like listening in tonight, or for the board who feels like unfamiliar or uncomfortable with the term, I just want to hearten, like, it's not a boogeyman. It feels really great. It's part of my morality and just being a person, because it's just a commitment I make every day to changing how I think, how I teach, how I perceive situations, and just always listening for different perspectives. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, we have Kareem, and after Kareem, we will have Heidi. Can't see you or hear you yet, Kareem.
Okay, figured that out. Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna speak on my brother-in-law Kareem's behalf because he could not be here. I grew up in this county. I went to school here. Honestly, looking back at my childhood, through the Newberg School District, I can see how much my interactions had been affected by my race. I can't go back and change my life, but I can let you know today how much those negative interactions affected me, how they shaped me into my adult life, how I've had to grow and heal from them to become a man I am today. And speaking on my own behalf, I grew up in this county as well, and I love to always remind people, like, I assume that no one would willingly dehumanize another human being. Unfortunately, even I, myself, as a person of color, as a gay man, I still find myself dehumanizing people that I have been taught to dehumanize. This is something that is inbred to us. This is something that we have to unlearn. It's something that I had to unlearn. It takes time, and I understand that it's hard because I know how hard we have worked to become good people, to support our neighbor, to become good Christians, if that is your case. But we do have to realize that this has been a problem for years. This is has what been taught to us through our media, through our schools. I know that I spent some time the other day weeping, just crying on the floor, because there's very little times in my life that I am not reminded of how Black I am. And it is very hard for me to imagine trying to bring kids into this life that look like me, especially in this beautiful area that I live, where no one else looks like me and no one else is believing the struggles that I'm telling them I'm having. So if you could, once again, I'm asking if you, Dave Brown specifically, and those who support your decision to not support this anti-racism thing for the schools, I really, really ask you just to really spend some time asking your fellow POCs. If you don't know anyone, message me. I know you can message my brother-in-law, Kareem, Sese McDonough, my sister, Shaylee Sese McDonough. Find us. We will talk to you when we can. Try to educate yourself, because my life, my children's lives depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I didn't catch your name because it just says Kareem still. Oh, and he's gone. Okay, well, thank you. Okay, Heidi, and after that we will have Stephanie.
Hi.
Hi, Heidi, go ahead.
My name is Heidi Pender. I'm a mom and have had 3 children go through the Newberg public school system. 2 of those children are white and 1 is black. My daughter, who is black, is sweet, well-behaved, kind, and considerate kid. She's a good student, a great athlete, and a good friend. She tends to assume the best of people she meets, but she has experienced both blatant and subtle racism at school. And most of those experiences of racism for her have come from the adults in her schools, the teachers and staff. I could spend more time than I have here today sharing those experiences with you, but I'd like to encourage you to consider an action step. I urge you, because I asked my daughter, what does she want me to say? She said, I want to be included in the conversation. So my encouragement to you is to include students of color in your collaboration process on next steps. I encourage you to seek out and listen to, uplift the voices of your Black students and other students of color and their families in your conversations. I encourage you to partner with those students to examine and problem solve the discriminatory systems, practices, and policies in our school. I encourage you to create space and provide the resources necessary for teachers and other staff to do the internal work of becoming conscious and reflective of their internal biases and how that affects their interactions with students of color. Require bias training of all employees, not just teachers. I have lots more to add, but this would be a great start, along with the other suggestions we've heard here tonight. And I want to address the idea of racism. It's already been addressed, but I'm going off script here and saying that it doesn't really matter if you don't think that you're racist. We all are. We all have biases. We all have prejudices. And I think it's up to us to be humble enough as people to lead with humility instead of pride and saying that we're not racist. It's up to us to lead with humility and to acknowledge that we might not know everything and that we have a lot to learn. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Okay, now we have Stephanie, and after Stephanie will be Amanda. Hi, Stephanie, we can, oh, there you go.
Hi.
Perfect. Go
Hi,
ahead.
sorry. Hi, my name is Stephanie Nally. I'm entering my 9th year of teaching elementary school. I live and I teach here in Newberg. I love teaching and I love interacting with all my students on a daily basis. I wanted to attend tonight's meeting to listen to what our community wanted to share and what the community needs are as a teacher in this district. On June 23rd, you know, the Newberg School Board of Directors approved an anti-racist resolution. This resolution commits our district leaders, all staff and students to be anti-racist in any form. I applaud our district for moving forward and sharing with our community, especially our minorities, that we are committed to all. Now that we've adopted this resolution, we must continue to see what changes can be done within our district. I believe the first step would involve professional development and training for all staff, certified and classified, on being anti-racist. This would educate the people who work closest with our children. I also believe that we are in dire need of a social studies curriculum that teaches current events, but is also diverse and equitable. If we want to dismantle racism, it starts with our children's education. I'm hopeful that as we move forward, we can also have more diversity within our staff so that it represents all of our students. This will help all students see themselves in a professional setting and prepare our students to work in an increasingly diverse society. I want to thank you for the work that's being put in place, and I'm really looking forward to the positive changes that are happening within our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, now we have Amanda, and after Amanda will be Chelsea. There you are. Can we hear you? Oh, there you go. I think you're all right. Go ahead.
We good? Okay. All right. My name is Amanda Lamb, and I am the parent of a Newberg High School student and an elementary schooler, as well as a children's librarian here in Newberg. Our household and my profession as a whole has been striving to actively work against racism. We feel that it is not enough to acknowledge racism in our communities, but to actively work against it. For our family, this has been a multi-year journey with much more work to come. For instance, we try and make at least 3/4 of the books the kids read include a person of color as the protagonist, especially those written by authors of color. This includes happy everyday stories, as well as the difficult or historical ones. That way they can have a better window into lived experiences that are different depending on the individual. Daily pleasure reading like this has made conversations about racism with the kids and with ourselves much easier because there is context and empathy. We've also had some hard conversations about racism in our own community, both the overt and the nuanced. We've had to reconcile the ways in which we ourselves support some of these instances with our silence or our participation. Our family is now able to see the world and our community in ways that we did not before. Both the joy and the areas that need our work and united support. Before, we had relationships with people of color, but they may not have felt comfortable sharing their stories with us. Now that we are learning and listening, we are hearing more from these friends and loved ones about the ways in which Newberg can do better. We hope to call others into this work because so much more is possible as a team. We're heartened to read both the school board's resolution condemning racism and committing to being an anti-racist school district, as well as the emails that I received from both Brandy and Rebecca. These emails acknowledge that this work is just beginning and that the board is passionate about addressing racism in our system and creating systemic change. The first action items listed in Brandy's email were also encouraging: conducting listening sessions with our communities of color, board training in bias and anti-racism, and adopting an equity lens that will serve as a tool as we continue our work around policy and governance. I am in full support of these items and would also love to see work on curriculum reform to include human narrative like oral histories and other primary sources that represent voices who aren't always heard from, especially in history texts. I'd like to close by expressing my gratitude to our board for passing this resolution, as well as to those board members who responded to my emails to provide context and clarity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, next up we have Chelsea and then Megan. Okay, we can see you. Can we hear you?
Yeah.
There you go. Go ahead, Chelsea.
My name is Chelsea Oakes. I live in Newberg on College Street. I grew up here and I attended public school in Newberg Public School District for my whole school career. And I currently am the owner and operator of an acupuncture clinic and herbal medicine shop where I mentor young people. And I just wanted to thank you for encouraging the community to speak. And I wanted to speak up in support of the anti-racist statement issued by the district. And I think it opens the door to an ongoing and long overdue culture shift in our local community. For hundreds of years, communities of color have been speaking consistently and steadily on the need for a significant systemic and individual change. Yet this has gone deeply unsupported and at worst actively silenced by dominant white culture. It's well past time that the voices of color be centered and followed. I found an article that I thought was great on a website called Teaching Tolerance. It's a project of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And this article was published on June 30th by Elizabeth Kleinrock, and she is an anti-racist educator. And I thought she brought up some really great points for school districts who were developing anti-racist statements and directives. And she said, while there is urgency in anti-bias and anti-racist work, urgency cannot be prioritized over relationships or centering the voices and opinions of BIPOC community members. Standards and skills can always be retaught, but school culture is too important to get wrong. She suggests beginning with an honest evaluation of current practices. Remember that celebrating diversity or multiculturalism is not the same as anti-racism or dismantling white supremacy. How will we ensure that anti-racism is not just a box to check and that no one is able to opt out? How will people of color be centered in this work? How will they be supported in this work? And how are we working to create long-lasting change in this community? I am happy to be part of this conversation. I'm happy to continue to be part of this conversation as another community leader, and I thank you for opening this forum up to the public.
Thank you, Chelsea. Sorry, I'm just finishing up a note there. Okay, thank you. Okay, last statement we have tonight is from Megan. Hi, Megan.
Hi.
Go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right. My name is Megan Rogers-Zernecki. I live on East 4th Street near Edwards School, and I have 3 children in the Newberg Public Schools. My youngest son is just 11, but as with most young Black men, he has experienced racism many times in his young life, at school and in the larger community. I have asked teachers and administrators for anti-racism curriculum several times over the past few years, but there has not been much energy behind the idea until now, and I'm eagerly awaiting information about the practical ways in which this recent commitment will be implemented. I also want to emphasize the importance of our children seeing that school leaders are all committed to this. It is incredibly difficult for my son to feel safe and supported at school, especially during this volatile time in our country, and we know that children who do not feel safe and supported have a hard time learning. As a follow-up to this resolution, I hope that every educator and district leader will take careful time to communicate their support and enthusiastically embrace curriculum and activities that will further this effort. If they cannot fully support an anti-racist program, they should not be entrusted with leadership in our school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Luke, did I miss anybody? Is Lynn here at all?
You know, I've looked through a couple times and I've not seen Lynn, and I've not gotten a message as to which name might be Lynn's.
Okay, there's a statement in the Q&A. How should I get that from there so that it can be a part of the minutes? Do you know? Just so it's part of the...
I can copy and paste that and send it to you.
Okay,
Brandy,
cool.
the other thing too is when you were asking for Shali and Shay spoke, I don't know if it's the same person or... Because I see on the list of attendees somebody, but I don't know.
Shay, are you still there? Let me see.
If you're asking about the name of the person who spoke, whose name we didn't get, I got that emailed to me, so I can
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank everybody who came out tonight. I think we had a really, I appreciate that we had people from lots of different areas and experiences represented. And I think that as individuals, we all have a lot to think about and digest. And this is, like I've said in the many emails, this is our first step, and it's only a first step, and there will be more to come. But again, I appreciate everybody taking time out of their lives to help us on this endeavor. Okay, I'll call the meeting adjourning at 7:44. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.